Vetrii IAS Study Circle, the best academy for competitive examinations.
In the syllabus, there is one topic in science and technology called as space technology. Name any space technological product that you know, that you are aware of. Any space technological product? Rocket, satellites. Any other things? Space stations. Very good. Very good. Very good. Okay. Satellite means we couldn't able to look into every different aspects of the satellite. We can only focus on one type of satellite within the time frame available to us. Okay. So I am taking only one type of satellite, which is called as geostationary satellite. Any object that revolves around a primary object can be said as a satellite of that primary object. Have you heard about term? I don't know how many of you people must have heard about this name. Satellite towns. There is a major city in the center, and there are the fringe development regions, which is called as satellite towns. The naming is because of the definition. Any primary object that revolves around a major, any secondary object that revolves around a primary object is called the satellite. That is the main name. Okay. So do you know what now? A clarity. What is a satellite? Right. Fine. Majorly, there are two types of satellite. One is remote sensing satellite and the other one is geostationary satellite. Right now, I am completely going to focus only on this area. Okay. If you cleanly notice about these satellites, all these satellites will be traveling in a or revolving in a orbit, right? An orbit. To understand about a satellite, we also need to understand about its associated orbit. There are different types of orbit, and each different types of satellites are orbiting in its associated orbits. For instance, there are 4 types of satellites. This type of satellite is associated with only one type of that orbit. The name of that orbit is called as geostationary orbit. So to understand about this satellite, we also need to understand about geostationary orbit. But before that, I need to know whether you are very clear about this orbit, because that is a requirement here. Consider this as Earth. It's circling in this direction, okay? One is circling in this direction, one is circling in this direction, one is circling in this direction. A, B, C and D. Whether all these A, B, C and D objects are in orbit, or is there some objects in these four objects which is not in orbit? B and C is not in orbit. Any other inferences? Any other answers? Whether all these A, B, C and D are in orbit, or is there some object which is not in orbit? All are in orbit. B is not in orbit. Okay. To qualify an object is in orbit, I am giving you an example. Okay. Valayal. That is like a bangle. If you take a bangle, it is a circular thing. Okay. If you cover that bangle with a paper, an area around the bangle will be developed, right? That is called the plane of the bangle. Correct? The plane of that area of the paper is called as plane of the bangle. In a similar way, if you cover the orbit with a paper or something like a plane of that orbit, the plane of the orbit must pass through the center of the earth to qualify as a orbit. Now tell me which are the things are there in orbit and which are not. B is not in orbit and A, C and D are in orbit. So there are different ways a particle can be put into orbit, in this direction or this direction or this direction. To study about any orbit, 3 things are necessary. One is distance, and the other is what type of satellite is in this orbit, and the next thing is why that satellite is placed in this orbit. These 3 questions need to be answered. How much the distance is, and what type of satellite is placed in this orbit, and why that type of satellite is placed in this orbit. These 3 questions need to be answered. The first answer, distance. How much the distance is? It is around 36,000 kilometers. The object that is placed, this is the orbit which is at the farthest distance from the center. Among all the orbits, this orbit is the one which is at the farthest distance from Earth. Okay, so which the distance is 36,000 kilometer, which is roughly converted into an amount of 22,000 miles. Okay, roughly in the amount of 22,000 miles. I don't know which year it is. In UPSC, one question has been asked. Geostationary orbit is at a distance of 22,000 kilometer. Is it right or not? Wrong. But when you convert this 36,000 into miles, the answer is 22,000 miles. So they asked a question by a small variation. Okay, they asked a question in prelims, 22,000 miles. So the answer here the distance is 36,000 kilometers, and it is also the orbit which is located at the farthest point. If you observe the name, it is geostationary. Geographically, if you observe the object from, that is like if you observe that object from Earth, it appears stationary. That's why the name is called as geostationary. From Earth, if you look into that satellite appears stationary. Okay, how can we make that happen? How can we make that happen? A rough idea. How can we make that happen? We need to place an object in space to appear as stationary when you observe from your Earth. How can that be happen? Any idea? Just சும்மா யோசிங்க, just like that சும்மா யோசிச்சு பாருங்க. என்னம்மா? I just want ரொம்ப பேசிக்கானது தான். You people know. Exactly. The relative speed has to be same. Relative speed means the Earth is rotating at a specific speed. If you synchronize the speed of the rotation of Earth with the rotation of, if you synchronize the speed of the rotation of satellite with the rotation speed of Earth, then can be made to appear stationary. That's not the only condition. There is also one more condition for an object to be appear stationary in an orbit. That condition is that object need to be placed above equator. So for an object in an orbit to be appear stationary, there are two conditions. One is synchronization of speed. The next one is it needs to be placed above equator. Why it needs to be placed above equator to appear stationary? I have given already one example. One is this, and which is not in orbit is in this direction. Consider I have launched an object in this direction, in this place. Okay, Earth is rotating at a specific speed in its own axis, correct? Earth is rotating. When this speed is synchronized with the rotational speed, if you are observing this object from this location, when the Earth rotates, where will this location be? At this point, correct? But where will this object be? Where will this object be? Which is the orbiting what is that? Orbiting line of this object. That object will be in this place. Correct? Correct or not? Purida puriliya. If you launch an object at this place, if it is traveling in this direction, it can be made to appear stationary. But an object which is in orbit will not travel in this way, but it will travel in which way? This way. But that means it does not appear stationary, even though the speed has been synchronized. There has been synchronization of speed, but since it is not placed in equator, this object does not appear stationary. But look into the condition of equator. If you launch an object in equator, what will happen to this thing? Because it also passes parallel through the equator, which is the only latitude that passes through the center of the Earth. Which is the only latitude that passes through the center of the Earth? 0 degree equator. The only latitude that passes through the center of the Earth is equator. So the only place where the object can be parallel to the equator is the one which is above the equator. Here the plane of the thing also passes through center of the Earth. Now inga parunga. Earth is rotating and the orbit is also rotating. Synchronization of the speed. Will it appear stationary? In any other places will it appear stationary? It will not. Correct? So the only place where the object appears stationary is when it is launched above equator. Correct? What are the two conditions? Synchronization of speed and needs to be above equator. Clear? Because that needs to be understood. Because there is a very common saying is there, all geostationary satellites can be said as geosynchronous satellites. But not all geosynchronous satellites can be said as geostationary. Only synchronization of speed will not qualify that object as stationary. But all the objects which are qualified as stationary can be termed as synchronous, because to be stationary that object needs to be synchronous. Clear? So what is the saying it is? All stationary objects are synchronous, but not all synchronous are stationary. Okay? So the type of satellite that is placed in this orbit is geostationary satellite. So why this satellite needs to be placed in this orbit? Two conditions are there in this place. One is it is located at the farthest distance, and the other is this object is stationary. Correct? These are the two conditions. One is farthest distance and one is stationary. Why an object needs to be placed at the farthest distance? Exactly, to get a maximum view. If I am observing this person from very close, I can able to only witness these many areas. But when I can observe from a long distance, I can able to witness or cover a huge area. That is one condition. And the next thing is stationary. Why an object needs to be placed stationary? We spoke about geostationary, stationary. So why stationary? Correct. To cover every area. We could not able to cover every area. That is, if I am standing here and observing this place, there is a limit to my vision, right? I can able to cover only able to this much area, not the whole area. There is a restriction there. Why is stationary? One is, there is a reason we can able to cover a huge amount of area. But we have placed that satellites in stationary. Why? Stationary. Why that object needs to be placed stationary? Why should not it can able to revolve around? One country is a mattum paakrathu. Okay. Can I say I am passing some information to the satellite moolamada transmit agudhu? Have you heard about those things? I am sending some information to upstairs. Someone needs to carry that information and needs to deliver at some other place. Is it not a person at the upstairs should constantly receive my information? Now about information, if the person is not there, then what's the purpose of sending the information? So some person should be there constantly upstairs to receive my information. So that's the main reason for keeping that satellite stationary. So what is the main purpose of that satellite? It is communication. So these satellites are nothing but called as communication satellites. Okay, this is constantly purposefully made stationary to receive information and deliver information. Have you noticed in your this one in your house, while installing the DTH dish camera dish install பண்ணும்போது they will adjust the dish in a particular position and they will leave as it is. Because a satellite is stationary, it is going to constantly send information at that area. Once you place the dish at the particular location, you can able to constantly receive the information. அதே மாதிரி அந்த புயல் வார்தா வந்துச்சு, வார்தா வந்தோன்னே எல்லாமே கலந்து போச்சா, எல்லாமே disrupted, right? So all the direction has been changed. உங்கள் ஃப்ளாட்லேயே பிடிக்காதவன் இருந்தால் என்ன பண்ணுவோம் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா டிஷ்ஷை வந்து லைட்டாக திருப்பி விட்டுட்டு போயிடுவான். கவனிச்சிருக்கீங்களா? அது வீட்டில் சில வீட்டில் இருந்திருக்கும், அவனை திருப்பி விட்டுட்டு போயிடுவான். போயிட்டான்னா திரும்ப அதுக்கப்புறம் நீங்கள் ஏர்டெலுக்கோ டாடா டாகோமோக்கோ ஃபோன் அடித்து வாங்கப்பா வந்து இதை கொஞ்சம் சரி பண்ணிக்கிறேன். அவன் என்ன பண்ணுவான்? அகெயின் he will come back and align it properly. So that's the reason. Okay. So எப்போனாலும் இங்கேருந்து தூர்தர்ஷன் ஒரு இடத்துல தான் இருக்க போகுது, சன் டிவி ஒரு இடத்துல தான் இருக்க போகுது. They are going to send an information upstairs. They are the அவங்க தான் எங்கேயுமே இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் பாஸ் பண்ண போகிறாங்க. That is always going to be one area. Correct? So they are going to constantly send information upstairs. A satellite needs to be there obviously stationary to get that information, collect that information and transmit that information to a vast area. அது கொஞ்சம் பக்கத்தில் இருந்துச்சுன்னா only a limited area will be covered. That is a major reason for having at a farthest distance to cover a huge amount of area. Clear? புரியுதா? See, இப்போ stationary இல்லாம what happens if it is like some other orbit, if it is revolving அப்படின்னா what will happen? நீங்கள் ஆண்டனா தூக்கிட்டேவா போக முடியும்? ஒவ்வொரு இடத்துலையும் தூக்கிட்டே போய் ரிசீவ் பண்ணிட்டே இருப்பீங்க? முடியாது, கரெக்ட்? So it obviously needs to be, there is a mandatory reason for placing these objects stationary. Okay, so what is the main application of this satellite? Geostationary satellite main application is this one. First satellite of the world என்னன்னு தெரியுமா? சும்மா just for general knowledge சும்மா தான் கேட்குறேன். ஸ்புட்னிக். இந்தியாவோடது நிறைய பேர் மாற்றிடுவாங்க, அதுக்கு தான் கேட்டேன். நான் ஐ ஹவ் கம் அக்ராஸ் தட் திங்ஸ், ஸோ அதனால தான் கேட்டேன். ஆரியபட்டா, கரெக்ட்? Aryabhatta or Sputnik is nothing but an object. Just they tested an object, they have launched in space and made that object to orbit around. But if the object is allowed to carry some instruments, it is going to perform some functions. If it is carrying some cameras or something, it can able to capture the image and can able to get information. If similarly, for communication purpose, what is the instrument that the satellite needs to carry? Transmitters or receivers. Collectively that can be said as transponders. So what is the main instrument that this satellite carries? Transponders. So what is the major application which is going to be? Data relaying. It is going to relay the data from a place to another place. Okay, the speed in which the data is getting relayed, the functionalities of the satellite can also vary. For instance, 2G, the speed of data relaying is somewhat low. 3G போகும்போது the speed of data is huge. 4G na huge. In the same way, DTH na இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் high. So it is depending on the speed in which the data is relayed, the application can be also varied. Telecommunication application can also vary and TV broadcasting can be also made. Clear? So the speed of the data relaying will determine the functionalities of the satellite. One more thing is weather forecasting. Can we able to forecast weather with the help of satellite, with this satellite? Because to forecast a weather, what are the two conditions which is required for to say about weather? One is temperature and the other one is humidity. Correct. To identify this temperature and humidity, this satellite needs to carry another instrument called as a camera or a sensor. A camera. Okay, because main reason for having one another satellite which is called as remote sensing satellite, that is the satellite which is used for doing all this purpose. But there is a specific reason for having this weather forecasting as an application by geostationary satellite. எதுக்கு அப்படின்னா, there is one reason. Have you heard about cyclones? Cyclones கேள்விப்பட்டிருப்பீங்களா? Cyclones is nothing but a low pressure system. With the help of sensors we can able to identify weather. Okay, but this weather like low pressure system will turn into a cyclone in a day or in hours. அடுத்த நாள் காலையில பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு நார்மல் லோ பிரஷர் சிஸ்டம் வந்து சைக்ளோனா மாறிடும். ஓகே, ஸோ இப்போ வேற ஏதாவது சேட்டலைட் ஜியோஸ்டேஷன் சேட்டலைட் என்ன பண்ண போகுது? கான்ஸ்டன்டா it will be there upstairs, continuously it will observe the thing. So see, a normal weather can turn into a cyclone overnight. So is it a requirement for someone to constantly observe such a phenomena? If we miss that phenomena, that will turn out into a disaster. So in spite of having a separate satellite for forecasting weather using an instrument called sensor, this satellite, whose major purpose is communication, is made purposefully to carry an instrument called as camera to avoid any disaster. Okay, now this camera has identified that a cyclone is about to happen. So next condition is what? We need to inform the concerned areas about the forecasted weather, correct? And a disaster is about to happen, please avoid the disaster. The thing is like we need to send the information. Who is capable of sending the information? Which satellite is capable of sending the information? Communication satellite. So then we need to come to which satellite? Geostationary satellite. Now with this satellite we can perform this dual function to identify a disaster and avoid a disaster by communicating this thing. That is a major reason for having this weather forecasting in this place. Clear? One another thing is disaster forewarning, correct? One another reason is search and rescue operations. Discovery channel எல்லாம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா போட்டுருப்பாங்க கடல் அண்ட் என்னது அதுக்கு பேர் எனக்கு வர மாட்டேங்குதுப்பா. அந்த தமிழ் டிரான்ஸ்லேட்டர் அழகாக சொல்லுவார், அவர் அதுக்கு பேர் எனக்கு கரெக்டாக வர மாட்டேங்குது. அடர்ந்த காடுகளில் அந்த மாதிரி எதாவது சொல்லுவாங்க, எனக்கு கரெக்டாக வரல, அது கோர்வையாக வரல எனக்கு. அந்த மாதிரி இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு இடத்துல மாட்டிக்கிட்டிங்கன்னா என்ன பண்ணுவீங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லிலாம் சொல்லுவாங்க, பார்த்துருக்கீங்கல்ல. அது டிஸ்கவரி சேனல்லாம் அடிக்கடி நடக்கும், நீங்கள் பார்த்துருப்பீங்க. ஸோ வென் யூ ஆர் இன் தட் பிளேஸ், நீங்கள் சும்மா கூட எடுத்துக்கலாம். இஃப் யூ ஆர் இன் அ பசிபிக் ஓஷன், இஸ் a very huge area, correct? Very huge area. If a ship is in center of that ocean and it is going to a kind of a wreckage is going to happen, it is going to be damaged, or a wreckage is going to happen, what will the captain do? He will send a message, we are in a imminent danger, so please someone will come and rescue us. That means come and search us and rescue us, because we couldn't able to identify the location, that is a vast area, please come and identify us. Then what will he do? He will send a information. He is sending an information. Consider a scenario when the person in the upstairs, that is a satellite in the upstairs, is not there to receive the information. What will happen? The information that has been sent will be of utter waste. So there should be someone very constantly upstairs to receive this information and send that this person is in imminent danger, please go and rescue him. For such kind of operations, this satellite can be used. One more thing is defense. பண்ணலாமா பண்ண முடியாதா இந்த சேட்டலைட் வச்சு? டிஃபென்ஸ் அப்ளிகேஷன்ஸ். யாரோ ஒருத்தங்க சொன்னீங்க கான்ஸ்டன்ட்டாக அப்சர்வ் பண்ணிகிட்டே இருக்கணும் அப்படின்ட்டு. லுக், there are so many terrorist infiltrations are happening, correct? If this satellite is placed above India and made to constantly observe a border, can we identify that loopholes? Is it possible? Can we identify the loopholes? So this satellite can be also said as a spy in the space. எனக்கு தெரியாது எத்தனை பேர் பார்த்துருப்பீங்கன்னு தெரில, ஒரு படம் வேறு உண்டு, அதோட பேர் ஒரு இங்கிலீஷ் ஒரு ஹாலிவுட் மூவி உண்டு, ஸ்பைன்னே சொல்லுவாங்க அந்த மூவி பேர். அதில் இந்த மாதிரிப்பட்ட கேமராஸ்லாம் யூஸ் பண்ணுவாங்க. ஸோ அ கான்ஸ்டன்ட் ஸ்பை இன் த ஸ்பேஸ், எப்போவுமே பார்த்துக்கிட்டே இருக்கிறது மாதிரி. ஓகேவா? இட் இஸ் லைக் அ ஸ்பை. அதே மாதிரி வேறு அப்ளிகேஷன்ஸ், ஒரு மிசைல் இருக்குது, ஒரு மிசைல் லான்ச் பண்ணுறாங்க, தே ஆர் லான்ச்சிங் அ மிசைல், it will travel in a particular direction and it will hit at a particular target. When I say target, this place, the location of this place is nothing but a latitude and longitude, correct? This place is a latitude and longitude இந்த இடத்துக்குன்றதுக்கு. If I didn't supply this latitude and longitude to this missile, constantly this missile is traveling, so I need to supply that information to them. When I launch that missile, if the satellite is not there upstairs, where will this satellite hit? In a program பண்ணி they will not hit on a particular area every day. Sometimes they will make the satellite missile to hit at a particular area dynamically on a wartime basis, தேவைப்படும் போது டக்குன்னு. Okay, so for such kind of information we need this satellite to be placed in space. Also when you keenly observe the missiles, they will make the satellite to make the missile to travel in a particular direction. That means this satellite is continuously guided by someone by sending information to travel in a particular direction. So continuous guidance means continuous information from satellite. So someone needs to be constantly upstairs to send such kind of information. Clear? Geostationary satellites application? Clear? Okay. In India is having so many geostationary satellites with them. Okay. This collection of geostationary satellites are, okay, let it be like this one. What is the name of India's geostationary satellite? கேள்விப்பட்டிருக்கீங்களா? இந்தியாவோட geostationary satellite இருக்கா? இருக்கணுமா? இந்த கேள்வியெல்லாம் அடுத்தது வரணும். வேணுமா வேண்டாமா இந்த satellite? Is it a requirement or not? Huh? Can a country survive without having a geostationary satellite? Can a country survive without having a geostationary satellite? என்ன பத்திரத்துடன் முடிச்சிட்டீங்க? Yes, how? Communication இல்லாம can you able to survive? If I didn't give the communication to you, if you didn't get the communication, will you people sit in front of me now? Can you survive without the information or without communication? Can you able to survive without communication? No, you are nothing but in a dark age. But there are some countries, they don't have geostationary satellites, but they will take the help of some other countries which are having geostationary satellites to get the communication. Okay, clear? So every country, for communication, geostationary satellites is a must. Okay, clear? India's geostationary satellites. Pera sonna solliduveenga, Monday adiduveenga kandipa. INSAT kelvipattirukeenga? INSAT news la vandukitte irukku. INSAT launch pannanga. The name of India's geostationary satellite, collection of India's geostationary satellites is called as INSAT, India's national satellite system. Do you know which type of launch vehicle is used to launch this type of satellite? Theriyuma? Enama? PSLV, GSLV. The name of GSLV is called as Geosynchronous Launch Vehicle. புரியுதா GSLV பேர் வரும்போது? அப்ப GSLV எந்த type of satellite launch பண்றதுக்கு யூஸ் பண்றாங்க? Geostationary satellites. But presently this type of satellite are said as the heaviest satellite. Geostationary satellites are the heaviest satellites. Why? Perform more functions. Okay. As I said before, the geostationary orbit is the farthest orbit. So to travel to long distance, it needs to carry more amount of fuel. So nariya avlo dooram pogunna nariya thookitu ponuma. So thookitu pogunu abindrathu automatically the weight is increased. Okay, so our GSLV, there are some technical improvements that is happening now to make this satellite. We don't have the capability to launch heaviest satellites. Okay, so there are some, because even when we launched GSLV, there has been consistent failures some few years back, but presently past 4 missions of GSLV has been a consistent success. Okay, so for the reason, it's like it happened in the recent 3 years. In the recent 3 years, the last 3 years, all the missions of GSLV has been a consistent success. But before that, there has been so many failures. So we don't, எவ்வளவு காசு செலவு பண்ணி ஒரு சேட்டலைட்டை லான்ச் பண்ண முடியும் உங்களுக்கு? They have spent some millions of dollars in launching a satellite. If they launch with the help of a launch vehicle that makes the mission failure, so எவ்வளவு பெரிய ஒர்க் போச்சு, எவ்வளவு காசு போச்சு, எல்லாமே போச்சுதா? So obviously they will be very clear when a very kind of the launch vehicle should be very credible in launching these kinds of satellites. So adunala, since நம்ம ஒரு starting stage la irundadunala, we didn't launch the geostationary satellites or INSAT with the help of our launch vehicle. Rather, we used the launch vehicle of Europe, which the name of the launch vehicle is called as Ariane. ARANE, Ariane Space Launch Vehicle. Okay, in a matter of some 2 years, we will be launching our geostationary satellites with our own launch vehicle. It is going to happen. You are going to witness it. நீங்க பார்க்க போறீங்க. In 2 years or at a max of 3 years, already we have launched some geostationary satellites with our launch vehicle, but all the INSATs are presently being launched with the help of Ariane Space Launch Vehicle, except one, which is launched with the help of our GSLV. But in future, all the INSAT will be also launched with the help of our own launch vehicle. That will be dealt in detail in my regular classes. Okay, regular class la na adha pathina oru detail GSLV story ungalku solluven. When I speak about that story, you will be having much more clarity in that area. Okay, the first INSAT was launched at the time of 1982, which was a failure. Okay, the next INSAT was launched at a period of 1983, which was a success. We generally take into account only the success. So the first launch happened at the period of INSAT 1B is in 1983. Okay, so what is the major revolution of this INSAT satellites? INSAT oda balam enna? India oda balam INSAT moolama enna? We have a vibrant telecommunication systems and meteorological systems.
Vetrii IAS Study Circle, South India's best faculties, excellent infrastructure, complete course material, 100% scholarship, greatest achievement within 5 years. Vetrii IAS Study Circle, the best academy for competitive examinations.